Okay, so if we go to our program here, we're going to need the usual suspects. So we're going to need our information. So go ahead and type that information in with the IOStream and, the IO and the utils. So let's go ahead and do that. Sorry, there's a delay here. So we're gonna do our import. Java.io import Java util. Oops, helps stuff. And guys, if at any time I'm going too fast, just holler and let me know. We need our public class main. And we need our public static. Okay, so let's rehash about user input. So with user input, or to get information from the user or the keyboard, we need the word scanner. And you can create any variable you want for scanner. So you could put user input. And it's going to equal a new scanner. And it's going to be system.in. So this just assigns input to variable user input. Nothing new. And then let's prompt our user for some type of information. So I need a system out print line. System out print line. And let's do what is your grade? We're going to be asking the user for what their grade is. And for this one, we're going to be doing an integer. So it's going to be inputting a number. So let's go ahead and declare a variable as an int. We're going to create my grade. And we're going to assign it to that user input or the scanner. So user input dot next int. So this reads in input or user input and assign it to my grade. And then let's just see out that system out that information just to make sure it works. So let's go ahead and just print out my grade. This is nothing new. This is just creating a scanner, prompting a user, reading in the information, and spitting it out. And I'm going to run this, hopefully with no errors. What is your grade? Let's go ahead and say 78. And it spits it out. Hopefully you don't have 33 errors.
Okay, we have a few errors here. Julian, Zach,
Man,
Caleb,
that's a lot.
Zach has refused this time.
Woo! Okay, you want to make sure you guys read the comments about what the error says.
Can you go up to the top of your screen again?
Sure.
Call the guys. I'll go use that. I don't like the special.
And of course, it's frozen.
I know. That kept happening to me too.
Shoot, I think it froze.
That's all right. They're working on this one.
Okay, because I may have to
You have time to
redo it here.
redo it here.
Let's see. Nope. Okay, so here we go.
Okay, Zach's cleared up. Caleb, your errors are gone. I think everybody's good now.
Excellent.
Caleb, how about you? We're all good now.
Okay. So here we just have user input and we're spitting it out. Now let's talk about the Boolean aspect, where we're going to take that user input and make some kind of decision based on what we enter. And that's where the Boolean comes in to say, if the statement is true, it's going to output something. If it's false, it might do something else. So what we're going to do is, you can go ahead and keep that system out print line in your main, and then I'm going to go to the next line. And in fact, I might drop down another white space. It's still going to be in the main, in our driving function, but we're going to create some kind of conditional. And with this, we're going to use the word if. So let's go ahead and say if, and this is where our conditional part comes in. Our Boolean part, if it's going to be true or false, where it's going to do a test. So if, and then in parentheses, the user input, which is the variable my grade, so if my grade is greater than, and we could say greater than or equal to, somebody give me a number below 100. 64. So if my grade is greater than or equal to 64, I'm going to then, after the closing parenthesis, I'm going to have an opening curly bracket, hit return, and then print something out. So I'm going to do a system dot out dot print line. Maybe I say congratulations. You passed. I don't know if that's the greatest passing grade, but so in this, it does, hey, if the user input is greater than or equal to 64, the computer's going to say, hey, congratulations, you passed. Now, after that closing curly bracket for that if statement, maybe I want to anticipate that the person gets a lower grade than 64. So then I might have the word else, opening curly bracket, and maybe you do a system print line. You fail. It's a little harsh. And then you're going to close that else statement. So at the bottom, you should have 3 closing curly brackets. You have one that closes the else statement, one that closes the static void main, and then you have one that closes the public class. So this is making some Boolean comparisons or some judgments to see if the statement's true, you're going to do something. Okay, so I'm going to run this. What is your grade?
What is your grade?
Let's go with 70. It's going to not only print out what the grade was and make some kind of judgment. Is in fact 70 greater than or equal to 64? Yes. So it spits out, congratulations, you passed. If I want to do this again, I'm going to run. Maybe I pick the 50, and it determines that my input is not greater than or equal 64. So it jumps to the else and does a printout of you fail. How we doing?
Good.
Any errors?
No.
Wow. Good. Okay, so let's try doing an else if. So right now we're just making two comparisons. Basically, it's saying, hey, if it's greater than or equal to 64, you pass. If not, you fail. We could do 3 comparisons. So with this grade, maybe we're saying if it's greater than or equal to, instead of 64, maybe we say 90. And if you get greater than or equal to 90, not only do you pass, you earned $100. And then now let's do an else if. So if you get a greater than or equal to 90, you pass and earn $100. Else, if my grade is greater than or equal to 70, maybe we print out. I'm going to just drop this out. You pass and earn $50. Now it's saying, hey, I'm checking to see if it's greater than 90. Else, if it's greater than 70. And then anything below that, let's go else and do a system printout. Sorry, out. print line. Sorry, you fail and don't earn any money. And I need to make sure I have a closing curly bracket for that. So now it's doing 3 checks. Checking to see if something's greater than or equal to 90. It's checking to see if something is greater than or equal to 70. And if none of that, it's checking to see below 70. I'm gonna... So I'm gonna run this. What is your grade? I'm gonna just pick 89. So it checked to see if it was greater than 90. It's not. So then it goes to the next check. Is it greater than 70? Yes, it is. So I pass and earn $50. I could run it again to see if it recognizes that last else statement. Maybe I only get a 45. And I don't earn any money and I fail. So something like this might be used for, if we were going to do something with grades, it might be something like when you take a quiz in Schoology and it's just telling you what your grade is as far as, let's say, a letter grade. You could have user input where either the computer is inputting it based on what was earned or the teacher's putting it, and then it gives you different answers. But there's many applications besides grade. How are we doing? Did we get any errors? You don't think so? Is that the voice of the people? That's okay. Yes, you want to make sure your keyboards are all working.
Okay, I'm getting a problem, but I don't really know if it's a problem. If I put in 95, they do pass it in, earn $100, but I'm also getting this pass and earn $50. Put the arrow facing the wrong way.
That could be. Make sure you have else if
Make sure you have else if
as well.
as well.
You do the higher numbers first, like for the 9 and 70.
Yes.
Yes.
So it reads it top down, and it's going to first go through that first check. So you're basically saying if it's true, you're going to output. Else, if this is true. So you have the else kind of, it does matter.
So I place the ball.
Make sure you have 3 closing curly brackets at the end. Sometimes it helps, guys, if you're getting errors to kind of go back and eliminate line after line. Like just start with the if. And test that first. And then start with the else if and test both the if and the else if. And then include the else. If you want, you can take a screenshot. You're all good? That's okay.
That's okay.
How we doing?
How we doing? I think we're all good now.
Okay.
It's all set.
So with this, we can also do
So with
nested
this, we can also do
if code.
if code.
So we can nest them
So we
inside
can
of each
nest
other.
them inside of each other.
So I'm going to go up to my
So I'm gonna go
first
up to
if
my
statement
first
and actually go in
and actually go in
to
to
that first opening and closing
first opening and closing
bracket for the if my grade is
if my grade
greater than or equal to 90.
is equal to 90.
I'm going to go after my outprint.
I'm gonna go after my output.
I'm on line 14 here.
I'm on line 14.
And I'm going to nest another if statement in there.
Nest another if statement.
So not only is it going to test to see if
So not
something
only
is
is it a test to see
greater than 90,
greater than 90,
it's also going to do a test within
it's
there.
also gonna do a test within.
So I'm going to do if
So I'm gonna do if
my grade
my grade
is,
is
let's do, um, in there, let's do less than,
in there. Let's do less than.
actually let's do,
So
sorry,
let's do
greater than
greater than
or equals to
or equals to
95.
95.
System, oh, print line, A. So if it's greater than 95, it's going to
So if
be
it's greater than 95, it's gonna be
an A. And then after
and then after
that if statement, I'm going to have an else.
that if statement, I'm gonna have an else.
And it's going to do a system out print line A minus.
Minus.
And I forgot semicolons after
And
those.
I forgot semicolons.
So in this
So in this
modification here,
modification here,
I'm checking to see if my grade is greater than 90.
checking to see if my grade is greater than 90.
If it is greater than 90,
If it is greater than 90,
it's not only going to print out congratulations, you passed, you earned $100. It's also going to check to see if my grade is greater than 95. If it is, I get an A.
I get an A.
Else, I get an A minus.
Else, I get an A minus.
So it can only do this internal
So it can only do this internal
else if
else
if the original my grade
the original my grade
is in fact greater than 90
in fact greater than 90
or greater than or equal to 90.
or greater than or equal to 90.
And if that initial check is false, it'll jump down to this second test of is my grade greater than or equal to 70. And you want to make sure
You want to make sure
you have the right opening and closing curly brackets,
curly brackets,
which I
which I
do not. So I need another closing
another
after that else statement.
after that else.
So to double check,
So to double check,
I've got an opening
got an opening
and closing curly bracket for that if first if statement.
first if statement.
to see if it's greater than or equal to 90. And then within that, I have another if statement with an opening and closing curly bracket. And then I have my else statement with an opening and closing curly bracket. So the curly brackets are going to matter where they are. I'm going to run this to make sure I don't have any errors, which it could happen. So I'm going to run this. What is my grade? Maybe I'm going to pick a 93. All right, so it checks to see if my grade is greater than 90. It's true. So then it's going to print out congratulations. It's then going to check to see if my input is greater than or equal to 95. It's not. So it's going to jump down to this else statement and print the A minus. Okay. That I know it gets complicated with the curly brackets. Oftentimes students will, if they get an error, they'll start just adding curly brackets at the very end. And it's really important to understand what you want within those curly brackets. Because those curly brackets are kind of like a box that holds the directions or the instructions or input for every section that you guys are coding. So sometimes I give myself more visual white space so I can kind of see it and say, okay, that chunk is for that, and that goes in there. And if you notice that in our editor, it does do some indenting. It does have these lines that kind of line up to kind of show you where the beginning and the end of that section of code is in terms of your opening and closing curly brackets. So that's really important to take a look at. And you could do these embedded if and else statements in all the sections. So I could go ahead and do another one for my grade is greater than or equal to 70. I can put one inside the else. I could even go ahead and put another one with inside that if my grade is greater than or equal to 95. So you can do multiple nesting. It's just going to be really important to know where your opening and closing curly brackets are. Questions? No? Okay, are you guys ready to compare strings? Huh? Words? Are you ready to compare words? Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so if you want, you could take a screenshot of this, of your code. Otherwise, I'm going to delete it. And I did record this, so if you need to go back, you can fast forward. But we're going to talk about comparing strings or words or letters. So I'm going to go back to my code.
You're cutting out.
Can you hear us?
I can. Yep.
Because you're cutting out zero.
So it's on your end.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Trying to think. You may just have to watch
We just
more.
have to watch.
We'll do our best here.
We'll do our best here.
So we're going to keep
So we're going to keep
the
the
scanner information,
standard information,
and I'm going to
and I'm going to
delete the rest.
delete the rest.
I'm going to make sure I still have an
I'm gonna make sure
opening
I still have an opening
and closing curly bracket.
and close curly bracket.
And here we're going to
And here
prompt
we're gonna prompt
our user
our user
for a password.
for a password.
So system out
Out
9. What is your password? Because your password can be
because your password can be
numbers, can be letters,
numbers, can be letters.
we're going to talk about strings.
We're going to talk about strings.
So we're going to create a string variable
Create a string variable
and say password.
and say password.
And it's going to read that line in.
That's going to read that line in.
And then let's just double check.
And then let's just double check.
So this is just going to double
This is just going to double
check user input.
user input.
We're going to have a system that out
System
current line
line.
password. This is just a good check
This is just a good check.
to make sure our code is correct
To
as
make sure
far
our code is correct
as reading information in.
as reading information in.
So I'm going to run this.
So I'm going to run this.
Oops,
Oops.
got an error.
An error.
Where did I miss it? Line 13.
Line 13.
Oh, I'm missing a closing curly bracket.
Closing curly.
So if this closes, void main. And this closes.
This closes.
I forgot my curly brackets.
I forgot my curly bracket.
So let's run this again.
Let's run this again.
Hopefully with no errors.
Hopefully with no errors.
And yep, it asks for my password.
It asks for my password.
So if I do
So I do
1, 2, 3, 4
1, 2, 3, 4.
password,
Password.
it should spit it right back up.
It should spit it right back up.
Hopefully that's not your password
Hopefully that's not your password.
in real life.
In real life.
Did it work?
Did it work?
Okay.
Okay.
That's the line that she actually wrote out.
What kind of errors are you guys getting?
What kind of errors are you guys getting?
So it's- okay. Just do it like that.
Okay.
Here's
Okay.
That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. Okay, you sent the screenshot.
Okay.
Okay.
Please look at those. Please put it back.
So while we wait,
So while we wait,
some other things to think about is before when we are comparing information in our Boolean, we use the double equal sign to kind of compare and see if things are equivalent. Unfortunately, with Java, it doesn't necessarily do that anymore. Okay, let me see. Julian, in string password equals user input, you need next line. I think line needs to be a capital L.
Thank you.
See if that works.
It worked.
Okay. So before, when we talked about comparisons and comparing information, when we talked about Booleans yesterday, we talked about making things using the equal sign. However, with strings, it's a little different. We have to use something called dot equals. So I'm going to go after line 12 here. And I'm going to give myself some white space. And I'm going to comment, say, this checks the password. So I'm going to need an if statement. If, opening parenthesis, and now I have to look at my password variable. So if my password and this is where we are comparing. And instead of using equal, because this is a string, we have to use the word dot equals. Opening paren again. Quotation marks. And then I want you guys to pick a password. So whatever is the correct password in order to be valid. So I'm just going to pick 8, 7. My dog's name. And then a closing parenthesis. So this is going to say if the user input called password is equal to 87 Bella, I'm going to do something. I'm going to have a opening curly bracket, and maybe I print out system that out print line access granted. And then if it's not that, I'm going to do else. Opening curly bracket. System that out that print line. Wrong password. Access denied. Closing semicolon and then a closing curly bracket. Oh, but already made one. Sorry, guys. At the very end, you should only have 3 closing curly brackets. So I will comment, say closes if else statement. So again, it reads in my user input. Whatever the user input is, it puts it into a string called password. My program then prints out whatever their user inputted. Then it checks to see if my password is equal to 87 Bella. If yes, or true, access is granted. If not, it prints out wrong password, access denied. So this is if it is equal to 87 Bella. User is allowed. Okay, let's run this. Hopefully I don't get errors. Nope. So what is my password? I'm just going to pick something because I forgot. Maybe I thought it was 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4 password. It prints out what I just put in right here. And then it checks to see if it is the correct. And it tells me wrong password, my access has been denied. If I run it again and do, let's check let's actually put the right password in, 87 Bella. It prints it out and then tells me my access was granted.
Everybody get access?
How do we do?
How do we do? Great, everybody.
Excellent. So don't worry about handing this in, but you'll save it as a draft for you guys. And I will talk to you tomorrow because we're going to add to this.
Okay.
All right. Then I will talk to you guys tomorrow, okay?
All righty.
All right.
We will. Have a good afternoon.
You too. Bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.